Hi Pomcats! If you know anything about the Pom Pom team, you know that we enjoy making things. Whether we're knitting or sewing, we want to have fun, and part of that means having tools that are as beautifully designed as the yarn, fabric, and patterns we're using. Thanks to Coco Knits, we can find the tools we want and accessories to keep them organised.
Coco Knit's mission is to design beautiful, functional tools and knitting patterns for makers all over the world so they may delight in making, and we think they've been very successful in that mission. They believe every part of the creative process should be an enjoyable experience.
And you know what is enjoyable, Lydia? I love that Coco Knits tools cling to magnets.
Ooh!
Yeah, their Maker's Keep is a strong magnet on a slap bracelet, and their new Maker's Board is a foldable pattern stand with really strong magnets. So, I mean, that's really cool. And both are perfect for keeping your tools close at hand. So they can hold your stitch markers, row counters, cable needles, anything, throw that on a magnet. It's great.
You can really tell that Coco Knit's tools and accessories are made for knitters by knitters because they're so well designed with making in mind. And they also have accessories made from durable and washable craft paper fabric, which are great gifts for knitters and non-knitters in your life, like the craft caddy and accessory roll, which can help you organise all those little bits. You know, there's always lots of little bits with knitting that you collect in tote bags, project bags, or your purse. You can just hold everything from your yarn snips and the overstory hat you're working on to your lip balm and current library book.
Overstory, great project from issue 38. And I don't know about you, Lydia, but I care about the environment. And Coco Knits do too. They carefully consider the environmental impact and sustainability of every product they design and package. Their packaging is reusable and recyclable, thank goodness. And many of their products can be recycled or composted. This is like their tape measures, needle gauges, and their colourful magnets, which are all made with PLA, which is a plastic-free material made from fermented plant material. I think that's really cool.
They're thoughtful in so many different ways. And so if you'd like to learn more about Coco Knits, you can find their products in a local yarn store near you or at cocoknits.com. And very excitingly and generously, our listeners, that's you, that's the Pomcats, can get $1 off a knitting pattern from cocoknits.com by using the code Pomcast at checkout. That's Coco Knits, COCOKNITS.com, and the offer code Pomcast, POMCAST, at checkout for $1 off a Coco Knits knitting pattern.
Thanks, Coco Knits, for sponsoring this episode.
Hello!
Hi, and welcome to Pomcast, the podcast brought to you by Pom Pom Quarterly. That's a knitting magazine, and it does many other lovely things. And here we are. My name's Sophie Heathscott, and I'm joined, as I am now every 2 weeks, with Lydia Gluck. Hi, Lydia.
Hi, Soph. How you doing?
I'm great. I think we're both feeling quite jazzy, fresh, ready to get back into this podcast groove.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you like the groove?
I love the groove.
I love the groove. Feeling groovy.
Especially if it's a knitting related groove.
It's nice to be back in the podcast world because we said this last episode, but we have had a bit of a hiatus,
Yeah, and I think it's a longer hiatus than we expected for all sorts of reasons, some of which global. But yeah, it's so nice to be back and to get to talk to you about nice things, and looking forward to hearing from our listeners again too.
Exactly. Yeah, so for those of you who haven't caught up on episode 62, which was sort of our return of the cast, episode. I'm sorry, I can never think of anything like that without that song. It's a classic. We are working with a sort of twice a month, so every 2 week schedule, where we're having one episode interview, one episode knit chat, just me and Lydia. Cool Chat was also a working title.
Yeah, you can let us know whether you think Cool Chat is appropriate. Obviously, the answer yes is the only acceptable answer.
Because we're cool. Yes, so we'll start with a little bit of, what have we been up to? I think also it's interesting sitting down to this and it's like, what have I been up to for the past year since we recorded? And you're just like, I don't know, I had a bit of a blank.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably both decided it's easier to just do what have we been up to in the last few weeks, because otherwise this podcast would not be as short and snappy as we're aiming for.
What have I done the last 24 hours? Well, you know what? I actually had a day out yesterday and I went to Chelsea Flower Show.
That sounds so great. I have definitely never been there. Tell me about your Chelsea Flower experience.
Well, this is the first time I had been, and not to dwell on the global situation, but this was a Christmas gift from 2019 that I've been waiting for the stars to align and situations to change. But yes, I went, and it won't surprise you that there was lots of beautiful gardens, lots of beautiful flowers, and I was really moved. There's people who, you know, their life is making these incredible, beautiful displays, which are all installed over, like, I guess a week, a couple of days, and look just like they've sprung up like fairy gardens in this space, obviously where they weren't grown. They've been all transported over. And there was just so many beautiful styles of different gardens. Amazing vegetable displays as well. I've just seen the biggest pumpkin I could ever imagine. I love gardens, and I think there is a great solace in the outdoors and the indoors. There was an indoor plant display, and, you know, I think that's quite a standard thing that a lot of people experience, being indoors a lot. The magic of an indoor plant. But as a day out goes, it was a good one.
Did you have any particular, aside from the giant pumpkin, any particular plant highlights? Like, did you discover a flower that you'd not seen before that was particularly beautiful, or like a really great colour?
That's a good question. There was a plant of the year. So there was the plant of the year that I saw, which I need to remind myself what it was for the show notes. But it had this incredible foliage that moved from a deep russety red all the way to like an acidy yellow-green. And the plant of the year, I mean, I felt lucky to see it.
It's like Pantone's colour of the year, but it's the plant
exactly.
of the year.
And there was some, because the show traditionally is done in May, and peonies are often a big thing of the show because of lots of peonies are grown in May. That's the season for it. And there was a lot of focus towards dahlias, which are one of my favourite flowers as well. So I saw some great dahlias. Dahlias, I think that's actually how you say it. But let's add both in.
I hear both in common parlance.
So that was great. So yeah, great day out. Fun for all. But Lydia, what is going on with you?
Well, in terms of our thinking about what's happened for the past year, I no longer live in London. I live in Norwich, which is a couple of hours outside of London. And I can't remember now whether that's been mentioned on the podcast before, but I just felt like I'd re-mention it. And partly because in the past couple of weeks, I have been back to London, which is an exciting trip to the big city these days, now that I live in a tiny city. And I was there for many reasons, but I wanted specifically to see a couple of exhibitions while I was down. And I feel like it's been quite good, because now when I do go to London, I'm like, London things, do them! And it's kind of good to like pack them all in, even if it's quite tiring. But I went to see the Paula Rego exhibition, which is on at the moment at the Tate Britain, which was one of my favourite exhibitions that I've seen for years and years and years. I realise I haven't seen that many exhibitions over the past year and a half for obvious reasons. But yeah, just these like amazing, her early work, like all these beautiful kind of collages, like painted collages that I kind of hadn't expected, because most of the work that I've seen from Paula Rego is like kind of big, like figurative paintings, but often with kind of fairy tale like themes, or with kind of animals in place of humans. And it's kind of, the exhibition is organised kind of chronologically as her work changes throughout her life. And she did a lot of painting with acrylics, like these just incredible, like really large scale, and her use of colour is like really incredible. It's really worth seeing if you can go. Something that was really amazing though is later on she switched to pastels, and all of this is stuff that's like written on the walls in the exhibition. She switched to using pastels, but they look like oil paintings. I've never seen anything like it. They're incredible. But yeah, it's just a really fantastic exhibition, and I would absolutely say, if you can, to go and see it. And then on the same day, I went to see the Sophie Talbot art exhibition, which is at the Tate Modern. So it was like a Tate day, but two different Tates. And it was kind of like an opposite. It was like I couldn't have been more opposite kind of exhibition, because Sophie Talbot art, I mean, she came from like a craft background in that her training was in like the applied arts, quote unquote. And then she went on to do a lot of really interesting abstract work. Yeah, the people I was at the exhibition with were just like, wow, these couldn't have seen two more different artists, but both really fantastic. So yeah, again, I really enjoyed that exhibition, and it was just so nice to see things that stimulated my brain in real life. I felt that to be a real treat.
That is a treat. This is also a different kind of style of info for the podcast. When I said the last podcast we did, I'm thinking about like around, early 2020. And obviously we're talking about things which are sort of central to us, as in like London, the UK, and obviously there's a lot of scenarios which mean other people can't see these right now. But like you said, we hope we bring a little art chat, a little bit of delight of what we've experienced to your ears.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel really lucky to have been able to see those things IRL.
Well, we hope that little update from us has sort of settled you in with your knitting and whatever beverage you're enjoying. Or maybe you're on the move. I don't know. Where and how do you listen to your podcast? If you ever want to get in touch with us, let us know what you've been up to. We have an email address, which is podcast@pompommag.com. And we have the Pom Pom Ravelry forums as well, which has been a little quiet, obviously, but we'll be on there chatting, saying hi if you have any thoughts, musings, witticisms. We love to hear them all. So what's been happening in Pom? What's on the horizon for Pom Pom right now, Lydia?
Well, of course, as we've said, we're probably not going to cover the whole year that it's been, more than a year since we took our hiatus. But in current Pom Pom news, we have some very exciting things. We are publishing Gudrun's next book, Gudrun of Shetland Trader. Those of you who remember her, and if you've listened to the previous episode 62, then of course you'll have heard her talking about this project with our wonderful Sophie Heathscott. But excitingly, the previews are now live, which means that you can go to Ravelry or to our Instagram account, to our blog, many locations, and you can see some very exciting photographs.
So Gudrun Johnson's Shetland Trader, Book 3 Heritage. It's available to pre-order now, and the official on-sale date is the 14th of October. So if you like to get your books from a local yarn shop, and indeed, what a lovely place to get your stock of yarns and books from. That's our exciting autumn release coming up. But of course, there is the quarterly magazine, and issue 39 previews are out now. You can see them on Ravelry and the blog, all these wonderful places online where people can find our patterns. And so issue 39, the theme is the rhythm issue, yeah?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think if you're somebody who's been following Pom Pom for a while, you might have noticed that each of our issues has a theme. And sometimes those themes are more abstract, and sometimes they are less abstract. Maybe concrete is the correct word. I don't know.
The concrete issue.
Hey!
It's not printed. It's printed on a slab rather than paper. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so we asked people to design knitting or crochet patterns that were inspired by music or by rhythm. And I think that the patterns that we have in the issue really showcase that. We've got lots of really interesting colour work, and I mean, there's so many possible interpretations really for something like that. But I really think that the patterns that we have to show you, which maybe you're browsing right now as you listen to this, really kind of capture the energy and excitement and like variation that you get in rhythm. So the on sale date for that one is 11th of November. So a little while to go, but lots of time in the meantime to, I don't know, maybe choose fun colour combos.
Yeah, there's a good bit of colour work in this. I think it's that interplay of the notes as well, with the colours, if I was to reference the theme. And within the issue as well, the great selection of knitting and crochet patterns we have. We've got wonderful writing from Felicity Ford, who actually we've interviewed on the podcast as well. We should get her back on, which is about the sounds of making and community through history. Claudia Maureen Khan is also talking about knitting and family. Very moving piece. I think they won't mind. Some of our colleagues cried when they read that. So, yeah, get your hankies ready. And, of course, there's a tutorial. The Bergen twins, who wrote Moon and Turtle. We've got an episode coming up with those. The next episode, actually, Lydia, did you know that's who we're talking to?
Yes, very exciting.
As if you haven't already recorded this episode.
We're doing what?
And for this issue, we worked with Lydia Morrow for art direction and styling. Lydia Morrow was a model in issue 34, and she's a model in this one as well. So it was great to work with her for, a different style, a different energy to the shoot.
Yeah, she did a fantastic job, and it was really great to collaborate with her again. And you may know her on Instagram as What Lydia Made, but of course we will link to her in our show notes. But yeah, so it was like a little different rhythm for us.
Yay, nice.
But yeah, we're really excited for everybody to see all the patterns, and come November, you will have your issue in your hands, whether it comes in the post as a subscriber, or perhaps you're going to pick it up from your local yarn shop, as Sophie said. We do love our local yarn shops.
Indeed. And of course, with talking about issues, we like to talk about our faves. They're all top-notch. That goes without saying, but what is at the top of your to knit, to crochet, to make list, Lydia?
Well, for me, it's a tough choice. But I've been thinking about making Polyrhythm, which is designed by Johanna Kunin, which is the cover star of this issue. And it's a colourwork jumper in a kind of check pattern. Is check the right word?
I'd say it's almost, when I think it's like two-tone tartan, I think of it. Because
Nice.
it is that, I'm trying to think of the word tartan. Yeah, it's like check because you do get that that chessboard kind of look to it. But yeah, two-tone tartan, if we can kind of call it that.
Two-tone
maybe.
tartan.
Yeah.
That's a fun series of words. Okay, yes, so it's a two-tone tartan. And the magazine shows two colour combinations. One is a kind of black and white classique, and then we've got a sort of mustard and cream, again, very classic.
Mustard and cream is also just delicious meal.
It's what I have in my sandwiches.
That's a really strange English. Do you not eat the traditional mustard and cream?
Yeah, it's like a scone. It's an alternative scone topping.
I made the joke, but now I made myself disgusted.
I feel a bit sick. And then Marmite and cream is the other one, which is... So what two toast toppings will I be? Well, is cream a toast topping? Soft cheese.
Anything's a toast topping if you welcome it onto
believe,
the bread.
yeah.
If you believe. I want to believe.
So which two spreads will I be combining to create my colour combo? Well, I've been thinking, unsurprisingly, of either pink and yellow or pink and green, which I guess is a kind of jam and... I was going to say mustard, but let's say Biscoff.
Okay.
Biscoff's quite brown, but like a mustardy colour. Biscoff, is everyone going to know what Biscoff is? I don't know.
If not, they can learn right now that it's a biscuit. It's basically a biscuit that they made into a spread. So
I know, it
sounds
like a bad idea, doesn't it? But it really isn't a bad idea at all. It's so delicious. And it's vegan, which I think is an exciting fact about it.
I'm not a fan of it because it's just too sweet for me.
Wow.
I'd rather have a biscuit, Somehow that's less sweet.
But what if you put some Biscoff on the biscuit?
No, we're getting down
Sophie doesn't feel positive about that. Weird. Okay, well, anyway.
I'm drinking my morning coffee. I don't know why there's something about no, I just need to drink this coffee right now very quietly and not think about these.
Well, okay, but so what is a green spread that I could have with my
gooseberry jam?
Ooh, or like a lime curd, perhaps.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yes, to be more just move away from the spread situation. Yes, I would like to make it in my classic colours that I almost never deviate from, because if it ain't broke, as they say. And then my next top of the list, second on the list, if you will, is Pink Noise by Adela Dutra, which is another jumper, so another sweater, ambitious since my sweater knitting is slow. But it's got sort of a colour work yoke, kind of almost like a striped effect, but like vertical, with bobbles.
The bobbles are very cute. Yeah.
The bobbles are extremely cute. And Megan, who is my co-editor and founder of Pom Pom, she has already made one. Did you finish it already? The whole thing? She did, didn't she?
Yeah, because hopefully at the time of recording, the plan is Pom Pom to be at Rhinebeck, and Megan has delivered on making her Rhinebeck jumper. So
she really has, and so inspired both by the original Pink Noise and by Megan's, I think that's next on my list. But how about you, Soph? What are your faves? Fab faves?
These are fun favs. I didn't know that's what we were calling them now.
Yeah, they're called favs now, didn't you know?
Yeah, God, I just been out of society for so long. I am really in love with the Rockmore crochet cardie, which is by Anna D, and it has these, you think of oscillating like wave patterns. If you see like a sound recording, there's sort of these beautiful ovals that kind of ripple down the cardigan, and that detail is quite subtle. You know, it's in the magazine. It's this lovely sort of warm terracotta-y, chocolatey biscuit brown. Back to biscuits. And it's quite classic in its shape. And I need to embrace more cardigans. That's going to be already, maybe I'm saying it for 2022. It's the year of cardigans. I'm very excited about that design, as I am all of the other ones. And I'm also in love with the Semitone jumper, which is by Valerie Ng. And it looks like weaving. There's this beautiful, it's knitted. There's this beautiful texture from the armpits down, the sort of top of the jumper and the arms of this plain stockinette. And she's used a lime green and a lilac with the white. And I think the best way, people are going to have to go check this out. I think the best way to describe it is it looks like some sort of exquisite woven fabric, but it's knit. And I'm really excited to have a little swatch with that, see what colour combos I can come up with. It's something very delicate and beautiful, like a delicate melody, you know. Oh, love it. So as we said, these are our favourites. We'd love to know what yours are. Go pick them out by Ravelry, or I don't know, wherever you like, you know, throw a stone on the internet and at some point you'll hit a Pom Pom pattern. So to round up this episode of Fun Knit Chat, the cool knit chat, which this episode is, we're just going to talk about what we're making, what we're excited about. And when I say what we're excited about, we're sort of using this section, it doesn't always have to be knit craft related. Maybe it will be.
Sometimes we're excited about crafts. I don't know if you've noticed, but we like crafts.
We like crafts. That's the podcast tagline. I love coming up with and that's now the podcast tagline. Every time it changes. Maybe
if we publish like a sort of a book about the podcast one day, you know, like a retrospective about Pomcast in like 30 years time, and that's what it'll be called. Nice. We like crafts.
I can imagine it being like some sort of Blue Peter annual.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be very cute.
And it's called Cool Chats. Cool Chats, : we like crafts.
But we knew a publisher. Anyway, I wanted to talk about something I finished making, which was Sakna's from issue 38. And this is actually the front cover. We're all about the front covers, it would seem. And it's also mustard. What is these themes that keep emerging? So yeah, it's a front cover design. It's a cabled cardie from issue 38, which was the autumn issue of Pom Pom. And that's by Zanette Hussein. And I just loved making it because there was such an intuitive construction to the pattern. You sort of work a bit of the back and then you're coming to pick up the shoulder and working down. And I really enjoyed the cables. You know, I've got a lot of time for the cables. And I used some Rowwork Sport, which is amazing, like rustic yarn.
What colour was it? Is it?
Was it? It was, and it is.
What, does it continue to be the same colour?
It does. This is amazing berry red. You know, like a rowan berry, like a very bright red. So it was got me in the, almost, am I going to say Christmas? I don't know.
The C word.
Yeah. Sort of got me in that vibe with the autumn things. And now I just need to find some buttons. But
Ooh, the eternal hunt for
yeah,
buttons.
that's been my project excitement because I've just finished that. And of course, when one finishes a project, one's going to cancel one on. So I'm also excited about working on a Silvatica Scarf, which is also from issue 38, and that's by Anna Husman. And the scarf is intarsia motifs. So there's a black background, if people know the issue, and has these abstract shapes, which Anna references in her inspiration, the shapes and shadows you see in a woodland, because issue 38 was roots and branches. And I've had so much fun going through the mohair, going through the lace, and I'm using kind of like a warm berry colour, and then I'm sort of playing around with different mohairs to see what kind of colours I want to do for my blobs, style blobs, craft blobs within the scarf. So yeah, that's a lot of mohair fun. That's really, really ticking the boxes for me right now.
Yeah, I would also like to make a Silvatica. I need to go through my mohair stash. But as you were talking about that, I remembered, I think probably we can all agree that the best photo of that scarf is the one where it sort of appears to be like floating in midair. It's almost an iconic Pom Pom picture at this point. And I have to say that when we were shooting that episode, when we were shooting that issue, we shot it in Norfolk, which is the county that Norwich is in, for those of you who don't know. We were shooting it at the mill here, and Sophie was there doing excellent shoot work with us, and I'm pretty sure it was your idea, Soph, to try that shot, wasn't it? And I remember thinking, I'm not sure if this is going to work, and I was wrong. It absolutely did work, and that's why teamwork is essential. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Thanks. I'm not going to be modest. I'm like, it was my idea. And I was like, is this cheesy? But like, no. Sometimes the cheese, you need it.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. Yeah, and shout out to Salsabil, who was our photographer on that shoot. It was a great day, and of course, we borrowed some gorgeous clothes from Phaedra Clothing, who is also Norwich based, which is very exciting. So that was a nice little Norfolk combo.
Yeah, and I'd forgotten how great that the energy for that shoot was, because it was really the first shoot that we'd all done post, well, kind of still during pandemic. But yeah, that was it was fun. It was like finally being let out to play.
Yeah, and it was great, because it was outdoors, so it kind of felt like a safe reintroduction to working together. But yeah, it was lovely. It was so nice. I think it was the first time we'd seen each other in person for really quite a long time. So that in itself was like very exciting. And then there was the teamwork, dreamwork.
Exactly. So I feel like as we move through these episodes, this last part of the year, there'll be all these stories about like, oh, do you remember that thing that we did?
Yeah.
So you'll if you have any questions, guys, we're like, so what were you actually doing while you were?
It'll be like a kind of flashback. There'll be like a series of flashbacks, and you'll be able to piece together the last year and a half, like a cool movie where they've very carefully structured things so you can get an accurate picture.
We'll just have like harp music in the background, like, oh, do you remember when?
Yeah, everything will go sort of slightly desaturated, so you'll know that it's a flashback.
Nice. Anyway, to the now.
Oh yeah, so what am I doing in baking? Well, I just finished another Elowen from Ready Set Raglan, which is a book that we released. It was last year, wasn't it? I've lost track of time.
Yeah, it was November, end of last year. Yeah, end of 2020.
Yes,
yeah.
Which is a Pom Pom publishing book that we were working on kind of during lockdown times last year. And so the raglan that I made is the version that has a kind of 2x2 rib all over pattern. And I've already made one before because I made it for the shoot, and it is now my personal Elowen. But I made a new one for a very dear friend of mine, and I made it in Sandnes Garn Borstet alpaca, which I'm not sure that I said that quite correctly, but we'll link to it in the show notes. It's a yarn that we also use in issue 38, and it's a lovely alpaca blend. and I used a very nice kind of sunny, warm sort of sunny yellow colour, like a sort of yellow on the orangey side, but not orange. And I really enjoyed making that pattern again, and it has now been given to its intended recipient, and I hope at some point to get some pictures of her wearing it. It was very nice to make.
That's nice. Making a big old jumper for a friend.
Yeah. You know, I have a lot of jumpers now, so even though it's tempting to make more for myself, I feel like having been making these things for so long now, I feel less quote unquote selfish, although I don't think that's the right word at all. But yes, it was a real joy to make something for such a dear friend.
You know, I always think of the episode where we chatted to Dana Williams-Johnson, and she was talking about, she says this phrase, and I think about this phrase pretty much every time I make something for someone, where she says it's never a waste of time to show love. And
Aww.
whenever I make things, I'm like, oh, is this like, I don't know, is this like a weird thing that I'm making for someone? I make some like quite, what's the word? Sometimes make some abstract stuff, you know, like I make someone a tiny miniature alpaca. I don't know, because I think they'd like it. But yeah, you know, it's never a waste of time to show love.
Yeah, and I think it's also nice to think about that it's never a waste of time to show love to yourself. If you want to make yourself a nice thing, that is not a waste of time, and it is
so right.
So there's so many ways in which Dana is absolutely right, and that's such a nice like way that encapsulates it. This is very good.
Man, such good vibes to the end of the podcast.
I know. And what else? Oh yes. So what am I excited about in general? Well, I'm planning some fun colours, as I said, for my issue 39 knits, but we've already talked about those. I can't remember if I've said on the podcast yet that I'm doing a part-time master's degree in fine art. Not good art or bad art, but fine art. And then people always ask me, what is fine art? And I'm like, I don't know. It seems to be whatever you want it to be, which is great.
Doing a design, I did a design course, so like, what kind of design? I'm like, yes.
Exactly. They're like, what kind of art? It's like, well, so I mean, you know, I'm sort of slightly predictably doing a fair bit of textile work, but also some painting and so on. But anyway, you know, we've been on our sort of summer hiatus from uni, so I start back very soon, and I'm excited about that, being in the library, talking to my cohort about fine art, so that'll be fun. But then it's sort of more like general things going on. I recently discovered a podcast which sort of slightly generically is called City Arts and Lectures. And I discovered it because I was I was searching in the podcast app that I use for interviews with authors, because I realised that I've never really listened to that many interviews with authors that I love, and I think I was looking for Rachel Cusk on this particular occasion, who is an author who I've read a fair bit of her work in the past year, and I personally have found it to be very wonderful. Her writing style I find to be like oddly soothing. I don't really know how else to describe it. Anyway, so I found this interview with her, and it turns out that it is a very good podcast full of interesting interviews. I've listened to Raphael Bob Waxberg, who is the writer and creator of BoJack. I also very recently listened to an interview that was kind of a conversation between Samin Nosrat and Lindy West. Samin Nosrat of Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, and I think she writes for the New York Times. She's a food writer. And Lindy West, who wrote Shrill, which became, I think, a TV series quite recently. I would recommend having a look at that if you enjoy an interview, perhaps. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you know, maybe you enjoy the interview episodes. But yeah, I found it to be really inspiring. And it's kind of nice, I think, to listen to things outside of my, you know, because I guess my main creative output is visual. And I find it interesting listening to people whose creative output is, you know, written or is music. Because I think there are so many parallels, and it's almost easier somehow to listen to people talk about their creativity in a different medium. I don't know why, for me, and I think it kind of brings a different kind of understanding for me of like creativity in general. So I would recommend that.
Very interesting. I'm going to give that to a listen. I mean, the title of the podcast doesn't use the word podcast as a pun, so I mean,
they really let themselves down there.
But I think it's that flow you get when people are talking about something that just is their their process and their engagement, and that this is what they know. I think there's something I love about that, which is why I love doing these interviews for the podcast, saying like, you like knitting, tell me about that.
Yeah, it's just always so wonderful to hear people being passionate about something, isn't it? And I imagine being at the Chelsea Flower Show, for example, you know, you're not listening to it, but you can just see people's dedication and knowledge and how much they love growing flowers and plants, and that's just such a lovely thing to be like amongst.
Yeah, I mean, who knew that there was the Delphinium Society? But that's people's like passion. It is great. It's wonderful. And here we are discussing our passion, which is publishing magazines.
And making stuff.
And making stuff. Well, that's it for our first Cool Chat episode. I'm still trying out that title.
It's a good title. But
It's
this is the thing, and this is, you know, working titles often accidentally become the title, so you need to be quite careful with them, don't you?
I mean, something like that, but not like that.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you're well. And as we said at the beginning, you can stay in touch with us. We love to hear from people. We don't hear enough people enough, which might be something to do with the fact we haven't recorded an episode in months. But we do love to hear from everyone, and you can do that via email or Pom Pom Ravelry forum. And don't forget that we have a great sponsor this episode. Thank you, Cocoa Knits.
Indeed, and you can get $1 off any pattern with the code Pomcast, which is a pun on the word podcast.
Which is why we have a great podcast.
Which is why it's so good, and that's POMCAST, and that's via cocoknits.com. And don't forget to look at all the wonderful accessories they have for knitters. And you could really tell that these accessories are made by knitters. Like, they really get all the things that knitters might need.
Very beautiful. We love them. And yes, thanks Cocoa Knits for sponsoring this episode. How great it is to be back. We keep saying that, but we're feeling jazzed about it.
It is great to be back.
We'll see you next episode, where we are chatting to Kiyomi and Sachiko Bergen about Moon and Turtle.
We are, so we look forward to that, and we look forward to bringing you more cool chats the episode after that.
Bye, Poms.
Bye.
Bye. Pomcast is produced by Lydia Gluck and Sophie Heathscott, along with the team at Pom Pom Quarterly Magazine. You can buy your copy of the magazine and subscribe too at our online shop. That's pompommag.com/shop.
Big thanks to Eli Block for creating the original music for this show and for being an essential part in creating this podcast.
Thanks as always to Megan Fernandez, co-creator and editor of Pom Pom Quarterly. And thanks to the whole Pom Pom team. We couldn't do without you. You're all great.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, and why not leave a review? 5 stars only, please. Send any feedback or ideas to podcast@pompommag.com, and don't forget to keep in touch with us via the podcast group on the Pom Pom Ravelry forum. And just in case you didn't notice, I was joking. Of course, all reviews are welcome.
I'm just going to like try and put some music in there and just like...
Yeah. Deepity deep deep music. Deepity deep deep music.
There we go, it's done.